In the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Oklahoma, known to only a few, it was recently the site of a David versus Goliath legal battle involving the most ambitious Native American rights case in history. This lawsuit would dramatically change the geopolitical landscape forever and set a precedent that could benefit every Native tribe in the country. With the lack of education, experience, resources, or without tribal government support, it seemed this lawsuit was certain to fail. But this underdog had more than meets the eye and has unexpectedly tipped the scales in its favor. On February 28, 2025, the state took the only action it could to protect the substantial amount of resources at risk. With the withdrawal of counsel, the court must allow the defense time to replace the outgoing attorney and bring replacement counsel up to speed, a stalling tactic to avoid the court's only justifiable course of action, to deny the state's motion to dismiss and request the plaintiff's brief. So one has to ask how a homeless individual could have made it this far in such a historic lawsuit. Well, the fight to get here is a story unlike any in history. Initially filed on June 3, 2024, the case developed slowly at first, before a series of filings in September dealt a devastating blow to the state nobody saw coming. On September 5th, the state submitted a motion to dismiss the case, their first swing of the battle. This was no pulled punch, as the state cited multiple reasons for the lawsuit to be dismissed from federal court, reasons including a defect in the original complaint, the plaintiff's history of similar attempts, all dismissed as frivolous, the state's sovereign immunity, statute of limitations, but most significant was that the plaintiff lacked the legal standing to pursue the lawsuit as an individual citizen rather than the tribal government. Given his lack of education, experience, resources, support, and not to mention his history of failed attempts, many would have thought 2 weeks would not be enough time for a self-represented individual to respond effectively. So it defied belief when the plaintiff quite literally responded overnight with a 3-page argument that not only decimated the state's motion, but also cited Teton Indians versus United States, which exposed the state's claim the plaintiff lacked the legal standing as clearly not true, implicating the state lied to the court. The fact that such an effective, detailed, and highly damaging response was written, submitted, and on record in only 18 hours and 55 minutes by a single individual is hard enough to imagine. But it becomes impossible to imagine when you take into account he still managed to work a full-time job as a housekeeper as well. However, for those who may remain skeptical and looking to simply dismiss this miraculous occurrence as a mere fluke, then the plaintiff's next response will challenge you yet again. On September 10, 2024, the state filed their reply to the plaintiff's response, in which they highlighted the plaintiff's deficiencies still remained to be addressed and challenged the validity of the plaintiff's claims of unjust civil actions by the state and dual tribal citizenship. The state wanted more than just words from the plaintiff. It was requesting the plaintiff provide proof as well as fix the deficiency in the complaint, which neither the state nor court had yet to identify. With the added hurdles of gathering documentation and solving a problem that has yet to been identified, one would expect delays from the plaintiff as opposed to his rapid first response, and they would be wrong. In a stellar repeat performance, the plaintiff improved upon his response time by nearly an hour, with his argument on record in 17 hours and 56 minutes. The plaintiff not only resolved the deficiency, but also subtly reminded the court of the obligation it failed to fulfill, which was set in Reynoldson versus Schillinger, where the 10th Circuit directed the court to affirmatively assist pro se litigants in resolving deficiencies in cases such as this. To answer the state's challenge as proof of unjust civil actions, the plaintiff gave specific details to civil cases adjudicated by the state that indicated corruption and rights violations. The burden of proof of the plaintiff's dual enrollment was easily satisfied, which solidified the threat to this lawsuit presented. In the final 2 paragraphs, the plaintiff made a startling revelation to the court that shed light on how a single individual could have accomplished such a one-sided victory in this ultimate David and Goliath courtroom brawl. The plaintiff gave a description of an image which he had submitted of a post from his Facebook social media account. The description of the post left little doubt that the plaintiff clearly expected a false statement from the state as early as July 5th, 2 months before the state filed their motion to dismiss. The plaintiff continued on to point out that the foreknowledge demonstrated goes beyond a mere guess, leaving the implication that a supernatural element was involved with these proceedings, but the plaintiff would soon reveal more. September 13th, a statement to all parties was filed in which the plaintiff defended the state's attorneys for the false statement, declaring it a mistake of arrogance rather than intentional deceit. The plaintiff then spoke on the situation, which now clearly demonstrated forces that go beyond the plaintiff alone were involved in this litigation. The plaintiff assured all parties there was nothing to fear, hinting at motivations to heal rather than harm. The unprecedented events now on record made for a silent 2 weeks, which the plaintiff would end with another statement to all parties. In the plaintiff's September 30th filing, he revealed his true identity to be Dawati, a Cherokee prophet and servant of the Creator, who he referred to as God. He briefly delved into his personal history and explained a prophecy of his family and his role in it as the last to carry the medicine. He moved on to the work God gave him, one of which is to restore the original teachings of truth that God gave humanity. He continued on to explain that the purpose of this lawsuit was that a new nation could be created by God to serve as an example to the rest of the world to model their own governments after. He further explained how this legal battle was foretold in the Bible, and he referred to as God's holy warrior in Revelations. He linked the warrior's description of a name marked on his head, which no man would know, to be a reference to his Cherokee name tattooed above his right eye, which few people can both read and understand its meaning. He would deliver the most important ultimatum in human history. He then informed the court of a choice they were being offered between two roads: reveal the truth to the world so that it may heal and continue concealing it and face the end of all life on our planet. For those who are familiar with the Seven Fires prophecy, it was of no surprise that the court chose neither road, but instead chose to strike the filings on September 11th through the 30th, which violated procedure. Now, I do not ask you to believe me. In fact, I ask you not to, until you have seen the proof with your own eyes. Because God has shown me that blindly placing your faith in the words of others is not only foolish, but shows him we are not using our minds for their intended purposes. Because only those who have chosen to accept the truth which he told us to remember forever can find him and feel the peace he provides or the eternity that comes after.